Hello, hello! Pete's Packs here, and we're back with our second normal version of or regular version of the Warhammer 40k Universes Beyond Commander decks. This is Tyranid Swarm. There are quite a few differences between the regular versions and the collector's versions. First off, not everything's foil, which is kind of nice. So you'll be able to actually see the art this time. But the counters and tokens are different. The insert is different. Quite a few differences. Let's get into Tyranid Swarm. As you can see, this comes with 8 Magic branded counters and 4 Tyranid faction branded counters, and then some tokens used for representing creatures or just any number of things. I like to use them as stand-in tokens for various things. We've got our fold-up deck box, which has the colors for the deck, theme there. Neat little feature. When you close the deck box, or the tuck box, you can see the faction symbol through this little window cut out. All right. So another thing that's different, we have a double-sided themed non-foil life counter. It's pretty cool. Goes from 1 to 40 across the 2 sides. This deck box is a little warped. Then our insert is very different from the collector's version. The collector's version just has art on each side. This has a blurb for the 2 different commanders. You've got the Swarm Lord and Magus Lucia Kane. In the back goes a little blurb on how to play the deck, the 2 different commanders and the options for that, and then an explanation of the color pie and why the Tyranids are aligned with the colors that they are. Very nice. Insert, and then we have our deck. You'll notice this deck isn't a banana, like the collector's version ended up being, which is one of the downsides to having a deck made entirely out of foils. So let's zoom in a bit and go over what's in the Tyranid Swarm. All right, so one of the face commanders that we have, let's line that up. There we go. The face commanders we have, which this one is foil, but it's not heavily foiled. We have the Swarm Lord, 3 green, blue, red, 5/5 legendary creature Tyranid with rapid regeneration. When it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it for each time you've cast it from your command zone this game. And then Xenos Cunning, whenever a creature you control with a counter on it dies, draw a card. Then we have Magus Lucia Kane, 1 green, blue, red for a 1/1 legendary human Tyranid wizard. Spiritual Leader. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put +1/+1 counter on target creature, and then Psychic Stimulus, tap, add 2 colorless. When you activate, or when you next cast a spell with X in its mana cost, or activate an ability with X in its activation cost this turn, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. Genestealer Locus, 3 and a blue for 3/3 Tyranid human with neurotraumal rod. Whenever a creature attacks you, it gets -1/-0 until end of turn. Whenever a creature attacks one of your opponents, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, or +0/+1 until end of turn. Acolyte Hybrid, 2 and a red for 2/2 Tyranid human. Heavy Rock Cutter. When it attacks, destroy up to one target artifact. If an artifact is destroyed this way, its controller draws a card. We have Aberrant, X, 1 in a green, for 0/0 Tyranid Mutant with Ravenous. When it enters the battlefield with X counters on it, if X is 5 or more, draw a card, trample. And then Heavy Power Hammer. When it deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Pure Strain Gene Stealer, 2 in a green for a 1/1 Tyranid. Enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it has Vanguard species. When it attacks, you may remove a +1/+1 counter from it. If you do, search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Tyranid Invasion, 3 in a green for sorcery. Create a number of 3/3 green Tyranid warrior creature tokens with trample equal to the number of opponents you have. Trigon Prime, 2 green-blue for 4/4 Tyranid with Subterranean Assault. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it and a +1/+1 counter on up to one target attacking creature. That creature can't be blocked this turn. That pairs up really well with the Pure Strain Gene Stealer to keep pulling lands out of your deck. Venomthrope, 1 green-blue for 2/2 Tyranid with Flying, Death Touch, and Hexproof. Goliath Truck, 4 mana for a 4/4 artifact vehicle with Stowage. Whenever it attacks, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target attacking creature, and crew 2. Aether Eyes, Rain of Blue, instant, return all attacking creatures to their owner's hands. Or to their owner's hand, rather. Inspiring Call, 2 in a green, instant, draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. Bred for the Hunt, 1 green-blue, enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Full Breach. Used to be a commander staple, not sure if it still is or not, but red-green, sorcery, choose one, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or destroy target artifact and target enchantment. Herald's Horn, 3 mana artifact. When it enters, choose a creature type. Creature spells of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. Soul Ring. You all know what this does by now, but 1 mana artifact, taps for 2. Ash Barrens, land, taps for a base, or taps for a colorless and has basic land cycling for 1. Frontier Bivouac. It's one of the shard lands. Enters battlefield tapped, and then taps for a green, blue, or red. Unclaimed Territory. When it enters, choose a creature type, tap for colorless, and you can tap to add 1 mana of any color, spent only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type. Cultivate. 2 and a green, sorcery, search your library for 2 basics, reveal those cards, put 1 in your hand, 1 on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Explore. You can play an additional land or 1 in a green for sorcery. You may play an additional land this turn, draw a card. Farseek. 1 in a green, sorcery. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Keep in mind this grabs duels. It's actually what makes it so good. Harrow, 2 and a green, instant. As an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a land. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. They do not come into play tapped, they come into play untapped. New Horizons, 2 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Enchanted land has tap, add 2 mana of any 1 color. Overgrowth, 2 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green-green. Rampant Growth, 1 and a green, sorcery, search your library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Arcane Signet, 2 mana, mana rock that taps for your commander's color identity. Cave of Temptation, taps for colorless, 1 tap, filters to any color. And then 4, tap, sacrifice it, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Activate as a sorcery. Command Tower, taps for your commander's color identity. Evolving Wilds, tap and sacrifice it, search for a basic land, put it into the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. The heck? That's weird. Hormigaunt Horde, X and a green for a 1/1 Tyranid with Ravenous. Endless Swarm, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 and a green. If you do, return Hormigaunt Horde from your graveyard to your hand. Lictor, 3 and a green for a 3/3 Tyranid with Flash. Pheromone Trail, when it enters the battlefield, if a creature entered the battlefield under an opponent's control this turn, create a 3/3 green Tyranid warrior creature token with Trample. Nexos, 1 and a green for a 2/2 human Tyranid advisor with Strategic Coordinator. Basic lands you control have tap, add 2 colorless. Spend this only on costs that contain X. Genestealer Primarch, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 Tyranid. Genestealer's Kiss, whenever it attacks, put a infection counter on target creature defending player controls. Children of the Cult, whenever a creature with an infection counter on it dies, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a Tyranid in addition to its other types. Exocrine, X, 2 and a red for 2/2 Tyranid with Ravenous. Bioplasmic Barrage, when it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to each player and each other creature. The Red Terror, 3 and a red for 4/3 legendary Tyranid. Advanced Species, whenever a red source you control deals damage to 1 or more permanents and or players, put a +1/+1 counter on the Red Terror. Keep in mind this does go infinite with All Will Be One. From Phyrexia, All Will Be One. Screamer Killer, 4 and a red for a 5/5 Tyranid with Trample. Bioplasmic Scream, whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 5 or greater, it deals 5 damage to any target. Biophagus, 1 and a green for a 1/3 human Tyranid wizard. Genomic Enhancement, tap, add 1 mana of any color. If this mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Bone Sabers, 2 and a green, artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it, equip 3. Broodlord, X, 3 and a green for 3/3 Tyranid with Ravenous. Brood Telepathy. When it enters the battlefield, distribute X +1/+1 counters on it among any number of other target creatures you control. Distribute, yeah. Clamavus. Let's see, 4 and a green for 3/3 human Tyranid Artificer. Proclamator Hailer. Each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on it. Each creature you control gets +1. Oh, so it's an additional +1/+1. Makes sense. Haruspex, 3 and a green for a 2/2 Tyranid with Rapacious Hunger. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Haruspex. Devouring Monster, tap, remove X +1/+1 counters from Haruspex, add X mana of any 1 color. Hierophant Biotitan, 10 green for a 12/12 Tyranid with Frenzied Metabolism. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may remove any number of +1/+1 counters from among creatures you control. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each counter removed this way. Vigilance, Reach, Ward 2. Titanic. Hierophant Biotitan can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Old One Eye. 5 and a green for 6/6 legendary creature Tyranid with Trample. Other creatures you control have Trample. When Old One-Eye enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 green Tyranid creature token. Fast healing. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard 2 cards. If you do, return Old One-Eye from your graveyard to your hand. Sporocyst, XX green for 0/0 Tyranid, Ravenous. Defender and Spore Chimney. When Sporocyst enters the battlefield, search your library for up to X basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Tyranid Swarm, X and a green for 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous. Death's Frenzy. When it dies, create a number of create a number of 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens equal to Tyranid Swarm's power. Tervigon, X1 and a green for 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous. Trample and spawn Termagants. Whenever Tervigon deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green Tyranid creature tokens. Having a day with reading today. 3 and a green, Toxicrene. 3 and a green for 2/4 Tyranid with Reach and Death Touch. Hypertoxic Miasma. All lands have tap, add 1 mana of any color, and lose all other ability. That's all lands, not all your lands. Tyrant Guard, X 2 and a green for 3/3 Tyranid with Ravenous. Field Wall, sacrifice Tyrant. Sacrifice Tyrant Guard. Creatures you control with counters on them gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Adelan Jackal, 1 red green for 2/2 human Tyranid Scout, Trample and Haste, and Skilled Outrider. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Deathleaper Terror Weapon, 2 red green for 3/3 legendary creature Tyranid with Flash and Haste. And Flesh Hooks. Creatures you control that enter the battlefield this turn have double strike. The first Tyrannic War. It's a 3-chapter saga for 2 green, blue, red. Chapter 1, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If its mana cost contains X, it enters the battlefield with the number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of lands you control. Chapter 2, double the number of and 3 actually. Excuse me. Double the number of each kind of counter on target creature you control. Gargoyle Flock, 2 green blue for 2/2 Tyranid Gargoyle with Flying. Sky Swarm, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create a 1/1 blue Tyranid Gargoyle creature token with Flying. Gearson Starn, Kellermorph, 1 blue red for 3/2 legendary creature Tyranid Human with Ward 2 and 3 auto stubs. Whenever another source you control deals exactly 1 damage to a permanent or player, Gearson Starn, Kellermorph deals 2 damage to that permanent or player. So really great with like Grape Shot and stuff like that. Malanthrope, 1 green blue for 2/2 Tyranid with Flying. Scavenge the Dead. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on Malanthrope for each creature card exiled this way. Mawloc, X red green for 2/2 Tyranid with Ravenous. Terror from the Deep. When it enters the battlefield, it fights up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Ravener, X green blue for 0/0 Tyranid with Flash and Ravenous. When it enters the battlefield, target creature attacks target opponent this turn if able. Shadow in the Warp, 1 red green for an enchantment. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, Shadow in the Warp deals 2 damage to that player. Tyranid Harridan, or Harridan. Harridan? or green blue for a 4/4 Tyranid with flying ward 4. Shrieking Gargoyles. Whenever it or another Tyranid you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 blue Tyranid Gargoyle creature token with flying. Tyranid Prime. 1 green blue for 0/4 Tyranid with Evolve. And it has Synapse creature. Other creatures you control have Evolve. Winged Hive Tyrant. 3 blue-red for a 4/4 Tyranid with flying and haste. The Will of the Hive Mind. Other creatures you control with counters on them have flying and haste. Zoanthrope. X blue-red. For a 0/0 Tyranid with Ravenous. It's flying and ward 2. Warp Blast. Whenever Zoanthrope enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target. Starstorm. X red instant. Deals X damage to each creature, cycling for 3. Abundance. 2 green enchantment. If you draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card in your hand and put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in any order. Death's Presence. 5 and a green. Enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. Hardened Scales. Very popular deck built around this in Modern. For green, you get an enchantment with 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control. That many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on it instead. Icon of Ancestry. 3-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. 3, tap. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Cinderglade. It's a mountain forest, so it taps for red and green. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basics. Exotic Orchard. Taps for any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. Game Trail. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a mountain or forest from your hand. If you don't, it enters tapped. Taps for a red or a green. Temple of Abandon. It's the red-green temple. Temple of Epiphany. It's the blue-red temple. And Temple of Mystery is the green-blue temple. Opal Palace. Tap for a colorless. 1 and tap. Add 1 mana of any color to your command color. Filters for 1 mana of your commander's color identity. If you spend it to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. So it actually doubles up with the face commander, the Swarm Lord. Path of Ancestry. Enters tapped. Tap, add 1 mana of your commander's color identity. The mana that's spent to cast this creature shares a creature type with your commander. Scry 1. If you spend it to cast a creature that shares a type with your commander's color identity, scry 1. Words are hard. Rugged Highlands. Land enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters, you gain a life, and taps for a red or a green. It's a gain land. Paramorphic Expanse. It's a copy of Evolving Wilds, or it's functionally the same as Evolving Wilds. Tap, sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Thornwood Falls. It's the green-blue gain land. We have basics. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mountains. We've got a forest randomly that is miscollated. So we'll put that with the forest. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 islands, and 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 forests. Hold on. Apparently we have 7 islands and 8 forests. Like, this deck has been very strangely collated. Then we have the Face Commander, the Swarm Lord, and his extra thick display version. And we have 10 Tyranid tokens that are other kinds of tokens on the back. Let's see, 6 of them are Tyranid gargoyles. And then 1 is a 5/5 Tyranid token, and then 3 of them are 3/3 Tyranid warriors with trample. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this adventure with the regular version of the Tyranid commander deck. As always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good algorithm stuff. And until next time, stay awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.